Man, you guys hopped in here early. I love that. Where you been? I was actually down at my parents' house with my kids. Um, to be honest, last night when I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna be doing thing," I completely kind of like I just forgot it was like a holiday weekend. Like when that happens sometimes. So, but obviously we're gonna talk nothing but kind of my reactions to the regionals, and where teams were sent. Obviously, like the SEC getting 8 hosts, Georgia Tech not getting a host. Obviously, we knew that last night, but still, like I think that needs to be discussed. So we'll get into all that. We got the matchups we've been waiting for. That's right, John. Where are you at, Buck? Kane said all that talking. We're in. That's right. Buck, but you'll be out soon enough. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I think Miami got like I think Miami, as far as if you're talking about like difficult regionals they could have been sent to, like I think Miami's liking where they're at. I mean, just to be honest. Carter, Coach K, missing you during the offseason. Thank you, Carter. That makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. Buck B, UConn screwed. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the reality, right? With these bubble teams, someone's gonna get screwed. Let's hear it all. Yeah, we will. We're gonna give everyone a little bit more time to get in, but we're 100% gonna talk about it. Trying to talk hubby into a road trip, little Oxford road trip. But who's in? Buck? Who is in? We are. We did it, baby. Florida got the Nest regional, dude. We're gonna get into it, Cougs. Don't worry. Like, you're gonna hear my exact thoughts. FSU all the way. Battlefront, welcome to the stream. Wow, we got an FSU fan in here. So we always have a couple Miami guys in here. We got an FSU guy in here. Oh, and by the way, it's Caps. Caps? Oh, like you mean Caps, like the guy? Okay. So you're Caps, is what you're saying. Is that what I'm saying? Washington Caps guy? We're heading to Hattiesburg on Friday. Nice. Are you talking about UR Canes or the team in general? Which one are you talking about? All right, so we're going to get into this really quickly. Let me just make sure I have my bracket up. So I think first things first, we just have to talk about the reality of what happened in the regional hosts' decisions by the committee. That's the first thing we have to talk about. That's who I was telling you about the other day. Caps and Reyes were MIA. Yep, that's me. My bad. Oh, okay. Yeah. Professor Mike and I are heading to the regional. Nice. I advise a short hotel resi like in Durham. Steve DeNorcio, Binghamton got a bad break playing Georgia first. Well, I mean, Binghamton was going to have to be... They were going to be a 4 seed no matter what. So they were going to be playing the 1 seed or whatever regional they ended up at. So I mean, they were going to have to play a 1 seed no matter what. Let's see. So Arizona and GT should be host. Yeah, we're going to talk about it, Cougs. Did you see the ESPN video of Georgia Tech team when they were announced they were pissed? Should be. Yes, I did see that. Southern Miss was a bit aggressive as a host. Yes, I agree. But you know what? When your AD's on the committee, Buck, it helps. Isn't it funny how that works? And last night, we knew they were going to be a host because their AD's on the committee, but we thought, if they're going to put them at 15, so it doesn't look like they just got the last host. But no, they just put them at the 16. Didn't even hide it. But we're gonna get into all of that. So first off, let's see here. Let's talk the regional hosts. All I always watch the live videos, but don't often comment. Glad to be officially back, though. Nice. I'm glad to have you back, too, Caps. Or Battlefront. We'll start calling you Battlefront now. So Vandy, I think, gets actually like a fair, for the number 1 overall seed, like they get Louisville, East Tennessee State, Wright State. Actually, it's going to be an interesting matchup because Vanderbilt, like pretty much everyone here knows, does not have like a very elite offense by any stretch of the imagination. Did not score a whole lot of runs for most of the regular season, though they did finish strong. Last couple series, then in the SEC tournament, their offense seemed to kind of be in better shape. But typically, like how they looked over the whole year is how they're going to be. They get East Tennessee State, who scores a lot of runs, hits for a lot of power. Louisville, who was basically a top 20 team the entire year up until last 3 series. And then Wright State, who is always, again, Wright State should have won the regional against Tennessee a few years back before getting walked off with a grand slam. So I think Vandy gets kind of a tough regional. I mean, again, it's not the toughest regional by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think, I had Vandy as kind of one of the more upsettable high seeds. And the only reason I say that is because they do sometimes struggle scoring runs. And in this environment, now their pitching has shown recently, and certainly over the second half, that they don't need to score that many runs because their pitching's just that good. But we have to wait and see. But I just think like when you don't score a lot of runs, there's so much. I mean, your pitching has to pitch well like every game. So we'll see what happens there. Southern Miss, again, you can debate if Southern Miss should be a host or not. Me personally, I do not have an issue with them being a host as much as some other teams that we'll talk about. I do think Southern Miss dominated the Sun Belt, right? They absolutely dominated it. And then they swept Troy at the end of the year. They made it to their championship game and got beat by Coastal Carolina, who's another host. So I think Southern Miss, just overall track record for the year, is a host-worthy track record and resume. There's arguments you can make. Their RPI was not super high. If I pull up their RPI, which is really kind of the biggest, their RPI was 19. So obviously there's TCU ahead of them. Georgia Tech's a little bit behind them, but Georgia Tech also got. We'll talk about Georgia Tech and kind of what I think exactly went down there. But I actually think Southern Miss should have been a host. They do get a very, very difficult regional. They get Alabama, who's a very good team. Prediction: either Sunbelt school will win their regional. I think of the two, I like Southern Miss chances because Southern Miss has a legit one. The problem for Southern Miss is they are going to have to throw Middleton. They may not. It just depends on Columbia. Like, do they throw Middleton against Columbia? I think in best case scenario for them, they feel like they can throw their number 2 and then save Middleton for the winner of Alabama-Miami. But Southern Miss is going to have to really play sharp. Miami's got a great pitching staff. Miami could surprise people in this regional. Alabama, again, I think this is a true 3 of the 4 teams can win with Southern Miss. Palka says, knock it off, Kyle. Stop, Dan. I think ASU can win the UCLA regional only if we play our best ball. Definitely, John. Definitely. How is North Carolina not in the top 4? Again, we're going to talk about it. Ridiculous. Ridiculous that North Carolina, who dominated Clemson in the ACC championship game, is not even in the top 4 seeds. And again, it just gets to the point where the committee, even some of the explanations after the selection show, you're listening to the guy talk, and you're just like, you're not saying anything. And it's just very obvious that the SEC, it's like the SEC had 2 teams that were not projected to be hosts prior to the SEC tournament and basically got rewarded for having to play more games than a team like Georgia Tech in the ACC tournament. Georgia Tech was a double-bye team, first overall seed, so they didn't have to play the first 2 games. Tennessee had to play day 2. They won. They lost. Ole Miss won 3 games. Okay. The SEC teams got extremely rewarded for winning games in the SEC tournament. Every other conference did not. Did not, and not only did not, Georgia Tech got penalized because Miami and Wake Forest both lost to Cal. So Georgia Tech beating Cal, again, in the committee's mind, they're just going to, like the narrative that we've talked about, it's like, oh, well, they beat Cal. 64 Analytics. Columbia is not a pushover. You're right. But I mean, they're not a pushover, but let's be real. I mean, out of the 4 teams in this regional, Kane, 64 Analytics has the Hattiesburg Regional as the 3rd hardest regional. He said that the regional he will be watching the most. And where are you at, Daniel Polka? All that talking. Yeah, I think definitely it is one of the harder regionals. Again, I don't go by analytics. I don't need to look at numbers. I've watched the teams play, and I know this will be one of the most difficult regionals. Southern Miss got the highest RPI 2 seed, Alabama, and the highest RPI 4 seed, Columbia. Yep. And again, Miami is like one of those sneaky teams. It's not that no one is going to predict Miami to win this, albeit that would be an outlier decision. But Miami is one of those teams that, like, if the offense it gets going and they're pitching pitches like they kind of pitched all year, Miami can win a regional. SEC gets preferred treatment. Yes. I knew Florida would go to Oregon State or a mid-major host. Yes. We had Florida going to Oregon State I think Oregon State. And again, just because if you're Florida's AD, you're like, yeah, send them to Oregon State. And then we'll talk about Oregon State being a national seed. Completely ridiculous. And again, I think that's a case study for why RPI should not be used, because it weights games on the road. And even the guys on that selection show, they were like, well, they played a lot of games on the road. And I'm just like, guys, can we just like, you got guys like Chris Burke on there and Rooney, who played, coached and played the game at a high level. Like, Burke played in the big leagues. Like, the difference between like playing on the road in the ACC or the SEC and playing on the road at, Cal State Northridge. Like, that's just not the same thing. That is not the same thing, especially when Oregon State is a Power 4 team and they were playing a bunch of like mid-major schools that were just kind of have been okay. So, of course, they're going to win those weekend series on the road, and they got super boost in the RPI because of it. Canes, I'm happy for you. I have a secret admiration for Miami. Wow, that's nice of you to say, Dan. Big 12, no host. The former Pac-12 got 3. Yeah, also insane. Big 12 got 8 teams in the tournament, no host. And again, it's just the committee basically said, oh, they won a couple games in the SEC tournament. They're in now. And at some point, the discussion has to move to, all right, where's the line? Where is the line for how you perform in conference? Kentucky was 13-17. They had a terrible record against Q1. Again, they played in the SEC, so it's just like they're in. That's the reality. And kind of unfortunately, that seems like that's going to be the law of the land here, like for the foreseeable future until a super conference comes around. How can GT win conference and not host? Committee is a joke. You have my back. I have yours. Yes. And again, like we heard that FSU AD was actually not supporting Georgia Tech for a host. So again, what is that about? That's FSU trying to get obviously if we look at it, FSU got matched up with Oregon State. So Florida State got matched up with Oregon State. I wonder how that happened. Hey, they do deals, man. That's the thing that you have to understand is that a lot of these committee guys, they act like in interviews, well, we were looking at the data and we were looking at the RPI and the strength of schedule. Dude, they're just making deals in a room. All right, well, if we agree with you that Ole Miss should be a host or Tennessee should be a host, then if I agree with you guys, I get Oregon State. I get matched with Oregon State. We're going to Omaha. Like, that's what happens. Kyle, give me a reason to live. We will. How did Coastal fall from 8? I don't think Coastal. I didn't never have Coastal going national seed. I think that was a bit of an overreach. But I definitely think it should have been like Oregon or Florida State. I got to scroll down now. You guys are power chatting again. Cal State Northridge is a West Coast powerhouse. You're right. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I guess I you know what? Maybe I'm wrong, Zach. Maybe you're right. I guess they're a powerhouse, even though they had like 18 wins this year. I really think we can win this. I know, Canes. I think you do. I mean, like you were projected for the last couple of weeks to go to LSU. I think you take Southern Miss over LSU. Join us, Kyle and GT Nation, in the FFSU team. I'm not going to say that, but I do think, like, I can't confirm that. That's what I've heard. But if that is true, that is messed up. Shit is all fixed, man. Yeah, no, for sure. FSU should not have been the number 9 overall seed. Bunch of politicians, 954. TCU is winning the Oregon State Regional. Yeah, I mean, to be honest. All right, so let's get back into it. So we talked about Southern Miss and Vandy. Texas, I think, gets kind of your run-of-the-mill, actually a pretty easy regional for the 2 seed. I think, honestly, slightly easier regional, maybe borderline than Vandy. Very close, but borderline. I think Texas gets out of there. UCLA gets UC Irvine, Arizona State, Fresno State. Another regional, I could easily see someone winning besides UCLA, like upsetting. Irvine has been really good. I think, like John said earlier, Arizona State, it's all about like which Arizona State shows up. Like the good Arizona State shows up, they can beat UCLA. I don't imagine Fresno State winning this, but who knows? Maybe Fresno State returns to the World Series again. LSU regional is soft. Let's see. LSU got a very easy regional. We're gonna talk about it. Don't worry. Arkansas gets Kansas, Creighton, North Dakota State. North Dakota State's kind of a sneaky 4 seed. We were talking about it on the stream last night. Could be sneaking there, but again, like I think this is Kansas and Arkansas regional. Ultimately, though, I think Arkansas ends up winning. I'll say it like this: if Kansas beats Arkansas and gets to Super Regional, Dan Fitzgerald will not be at Kansas this summer. Dan Fitzgerald will be gone if they win this regional, right? So that's something to watch. UC Irvine wins UCLA regional. Definitely can. Rhode Island is a 3 seed. Come on. Yeah, we were debating that last night. I did not think that Rhode Island should be a 3 seed, but I mean, again, it's just like some of these decisions you're like, okay, are we going by the same metrics everybody else should go by? Or Tennessee gets Wake Forest, Cincinnati, Miami of Ohio. Actually, I think this is a pretty tough regional for Tennessee. Give me a reason to live, Kyle. I'm going to, don't worry. Here's all the regional winners from John. Georgia, NC State, Texas, LSU, North Carolina, Clemson, Florida, Oregon State, Oregon, Arkansas, Alabama, Tennessee, Arizona State, Vandy, Georgia Tech, Northeastern. I like the Northeastern pick. I do think Tennessee is the best team in their regional for sure. Wake is just a very sleeper team, and it's kind of like Arizona State. If the right Wake Forest shows up, they can be they can be very good. They can definitely beat Tennessee. Cincinnati, actually don't sleep on them as well. Like they'll do some interesting stuff, like some speed stuff and a bunch of different things that you don't see a lot. Miami, Ohio, obviously winner up in the MAC. Really good team. Like this is actually a pretty deep regional, and I also would conclude this as kind of like on the more difficult side of regionals. Where will he be? Dan says, well, I mean, think about it like this. Depends on which job's open. Obviously, Mississippi State is still open. From what I've heard, again, can't confirm it for sure, but like Rob Vaughn is what I've been hearing. But it depends on the jobs that open, Dan. But certainly if like some ACC, SEC, more jobs open, Dan Fitzgerald, who was at LSU, took the job at Kansas, has turned them into kind of like right in and out of the top 25, again, at Kansas. That's a pretty good indicator that this guy goes to the SEC, Dan Fitzgerald. And, obviously he was a pitching coach at DBU. pitching coach at LSU for a year or two, won the national championship, took the head coach job at Kansas 3 years ago. Done a really good job recruiting the junior college, has had the number one junior college recruiting class, I think 3 straight years now. My concern with Northeastern is can they handle 90-degree heat and humidity? Yes, I think I don't think that'll be an issue. Cincy very fundamentally sound. Maybe it opens the game up for them even more. Maybe. Auburn gets NC State, Stetson, Central Connecticut. Stetson got one in a weird, obviously. So Stetson and Florida Gulf Coast were in the championship game, and because of bad weather, they had to, I think, suspend the game, and I think maybe it was like that made it 1-1 or something. And because Stetson was last year's champion, they are the champion again. Someone clear that up for me again. I remember reading it and I was like, no way this is how they determined who gets the automatic qualifier. Like, Florida Gulf Coast won. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did Florida Gulf Coast, like, they both tied and won the champion? They called it a tie, but because Stetson was last year's champion, they get the automatic qualifier. It was like one of the weirdest things I've ever read. I was like, what? That's how they do it? It was strange. Can Coastal beat Florida? I like Coastal's pitching. They definitely can beat Florida. The question is, will they beat Florida? I think Coastal, this is probably, again, one of the most difficult regionals, simply because you have probably the most difficult 2-seed in the tournament at Coastal. Nobody wanted Florida. Weird. Florida's on the committee. Florida's AD's on the committee. FSU's AD's on the committee. So Florida doesn't go to Florida State, even though they're right now, really close to each other. And Florida gets sent to what? One of the mid-major regional hosts. That's up in the Carolinas. Again, like, this is why you have teams that get upset every year, because like Florida going to Coastal is just like, okay. Like, your AD's on the committee. That makes sense why they would be going to Coastal Carolina. East Carolina is a 3-seed. Again, like East Carolina, if you look at just the raw talent on the team, a lot they were expected to play much better this year. They found a way to get it done in the tournament, but which East Carolina team shows up? But I think this is a Coastal or Florida regional. And honestly, I think most people are going to be picking Florida in this regional, just because it's an SEC team. They finished so strongly in the last half of the SEC season. So I think it's probably going to be Florida. Florida Gulf Coast had to beat Stetson twice. Florida Gulf Coast was winning the first game that got canceled. That's so dumb. I also heard that the Southern Miss AD didn't want Mississippi State coming to their regional. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just like, when you look at some of these things, guys, that make way too much sense. Yeah, you know why? Because they don't want Mississippi State coming to the regional, because what happens is in-state recruiting stuff. So, like, if Mississippi State beats Southern Miss in the regional and goes to Supers, that's going to hurt Southern Miss in recruiting, especially in-state. And just to be honest, like, Mississippi doesn't have like a whole lot. Like, it's not like Georgia or Florida or Texas. There are some really good players in Mississippi. A former team of mine, Brandon Woodruff's one of them. But it's not like a hotbed of talent. So it's not like a massive deal, but that's probably one of the things they were considering. Committee chairman was brutal with the non-answers on TV today. Yeah, I was like, dude, are you going to get to like some kind of solid answer? Like, what are you saying? Like, Virginia, teams like Virginia didn't get in. Like, what do you think? And it's like, well, it's Team A and Team B and Team C and Team D and like Team D. And I was just like, what are you? You're not even answering the question. And it was exactly right. I mean, it just wasn't answering the question. North Carolina gets Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Holy Cross as the 5th overall seed. Again, completely ridiculous that North Carolina is the 5th overall seed. Just unbelievably ridiculous. And I know what they're going to say is RPI. I mean, come on. Like, how about we RPI is not the only meaningful stat. And honestly, like, I think the discussion has to be had. What is the line where we say, okay, your performance you have to perform at a certain level in conference to be a host, right? Because like what we're doing is we're just saying, well, yeah, that SEC team went 16-14 in the regular season, but they won 2 games. They won 2 games in the tournament. Like, I think there needs to be a little bit more emphasis on like, hey, you got to do pretty well in conference, like 17-13. 18-12, like those are. I think we can agree that like 17-13 in the SEC is probably worthy of a host. I think something that we're going to look at, and I'm going to be discussing on the Bullpen Mafia podcast tomorrow night. I do not know if it's live or we're going to be recording. I gotta text Javi and Petey about that. But how many teams in the SEC got 3 free wins from Missouri? You didn't hear anybody bring that up for 3 weeks. You didn't hear anybody in D1 baseball. You didn't hear anybody bring up that a lot of these SEC teams that went like 16-14 or 15-15 got 3 wins off Missouri. Right? How about that? Anybody want to talk about that? So what we do is we go to Missouri's schedule and we just look and we say, okay, which teams got a free 3 wins? So we could count that as, again, like, and what people say is, well, they could have played another team and still swept them. It's like, all right, well, let's look how many sweeps happen in the SEC and calculate how likely it is that all these teams would have swept. All right, so LSU got 3 free wins. Ole Miss got 3 free wins against Missouri and is a host that finished 16-14 in the SEC. That means that Ole Miss was likely either 15-15 or 14-16 in conference. Okay? Texas, 3 free wins, but they're going to be a host no matter what. Arkansas, 3 free wins. Now, I'm going to pull up next to this the conference records just so I'm 100% certain. And again, this has to be talked about. This has to be talked about. Super chat goal. Actually, I need to put that goal on, Dan. Thank you for reminding me of that, actually, Dan. We need 10 more. 10 more is the super chat goal. I'm putting the goal on now. We need 10 more of $10 or higher. You can go higher if you want. It's whatever. For the 12-hour regional stream. The goal is started. Okay. All right, so thank you for that reminder, Dan. Notice how 2 SEC regionals got paired with the mid-major regionals? Yeah, it's interesting how that works. Yep, you're right. And FSU and UVA lost 3 games. That's right. So this is my point. Okay, so Arkansas was 20-10. They're not affected by that. LSU 19-11, like, doesn't apply to them really. Florida won 3 games against Missouri. Florida was 15-15 in conference. Okay? No one brought up that 3 of the wins were against Missouri, who is one of the worst teams like in the Power 4, if not the worst, right? Oklahoma got 3 wins against, you guessed it, Missouri. Oklahoma finished at 14-16 in conference with 3 wins against Missouri. I didn't hear anybody bring up, Georgia Tech strength of schedule in conference. I mean, they had to play Boston College. Did Boston College have 3 wins in conference? Did Notre Dame have 3 wins in conference? Oh no, Notre Dame had like almost finished at 500. Did Georgia Tech have to play a 3-win team in conference and 16-39 team overall? No, they didn't. And just to be honest, like, it was very likely that Missouri would have gone 0-30, but A&M just A&M'd. That's it. Where in God's green earth is Dusty Isaacs? That's a good question. Question to Kyle now. What is Georgia Tech's 27-man roster going to be? Who is getting cut for the postseason? I mean, you just have to look at, like, the arms that have not really thrown much. I mean, if I went to the rosters, I could probably give it to you and be, missing, give or take, a few guys, but I'm too focused on this right now because this point has to be made. Because, like, I haven't heard anybody talk about this. The fact that, like, all these SEC teams got a free +3 wins in their conference record. Alabama, +3 wins, right? And Alabama, if they had won, I've missed a lot of chats, by the way. All right, let me pull it back. Let me see. Auburn as the 4 most likely means SEC team gets either mid-major Coastal in the Super or fellow SEC Florida. So ridiculous. Yes. Also, Oregon State being ranked 4 spots ahead of Oregon. Joke. Complete joke. Nancy, if SEC is rewarded for championship games, UNC won their championship as well, having a good season. Yeah, I mean, that's my whole point is that, like, North Carolina, like, just dominated through the ACC tournament, 5th overall seed. What? Oregon State doesn't even play in a conference. Let me just make this clear. Oregon State didn't even play in a conference tournament this week. They played the weakest schedule of any of the hosts on this in these regionals. And somehow all the projections had them outside of a national seed. Somehow they get a national seed. Somehow. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any, like, you can't explain. Don't tell me they played on the road and they played on the road at Long Beach and Cal State Northridge. Chat was going crazy while you checked out Mizzou. Carolina got bumped to 5, so SEC Auburn could face mid-major / SEC Florida and Super. Yes. All right, I'm back to the Missouri thing because I do think this is important. All right, so Alabama, Georgia. 3 wins against Missouri. Georgia was 18-12. So let's say they went 1-2, like they're 16-14, maybe 17-13. Probably still deserving of a host as long as they don't get swept. So there's Georgia. Texas A&M, the only team to lose to A&M or to Missouri, and Mississippi State. So one thing you can say about Tennessee is that Tennessee did not get 3 games against Missouri. So Tennessee's 16-14 is much stronger than, like, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a 16-14 with an asterisk next to it because it played Missouri and got 3 wins. Realistically, Ole Miss probably finishes at 15-15 or 14-16 if there's any kind of a competitive team. And again, all you heard about Georgia Tech not hosting, and Ole Miss deserved the host and, everything like that. I'm not taking anything away from Ole Miss. They're a good team. But, again, your record was inflated by playing Missouri. And there's no team in the SEC or in the ACC that is as bad as Missouri. And my point in that is, in every single series in the ACC, like, you didn't go into it. You went into it thinking, all right, if we play really well, we can sweep. Against Missouri, it was, all right, if we show up, we sweep. Unless you're A&M. Right? It was a show up and sweep until the second to last series of the season in the SEC. So, I guess everyone in the national media forgot to include that in their analysis of the SEC and their should they be hosts and everything like that. And I think, again, Tennessee deserves to be a host way more than Ole Miss. I think that's where, and it's funny because Ole Miss ends up getting Georgia Tech in their regional. So Let's go through the next regionals up here in a second. All right, let's see here. When you actually break it down, this is insane. 954. Yeah, it is. I'll save those down, Dan. Thanks, Dan. Canes, the real reason all those teams are hosting in Oregon State is where they are is because of D1 baseball. The opinion of 4 people is why it is the way it is. If Georgia Tech can win their regional, we could have a possible Georgia Tech-Georgia Super Regional. Yep, 100%. They showed GT no respect all season in the ACC, and they showed Oregon State all season long. It's not everyone, Kyle. It's one publication, D1 Baseball. Agree, Kane. Seems like the committee listened to D1 Baseball. Well, they said, I mean, they said, like, they used a lot of the D1 Baseball's projections and, like, data or something, or reports or whatever it is. I mean, I think Dusty makes a good point, too. And this is Dusty's whole point. Where D1 really fumbled the bag on Georgia Tech was after Georgia Tech beat, was it Louisville? It was Louisville, who was number 20 in the country at the time. They could have ranked Georgia Tech at like 22 or 23 or even higher. They didn't do that. And then they beat Duke, who was also number 20. Remember, Duke was not ranked and then jumped to 20. And they hadn't been in the rankings since the beginning of the season before they fell out. And so by D1 not ranking them that first time, then they kind of gave him 16th because they had him as a host, and it just kind of messed up. The head of the committee literally said they use D1 baseball as a cheat sheet. Oh my God. I didn't see that part. Hey, Smitty, what's up, man? How should freshmen attack the mental game of collegiate baseball? You got to know you're going to fail, man. You're not results. You don't think results oriented, Smitty. Meaning, as a hitter, if I'm results oriented when I hit a ball hard and it's a hit, so I'm happy. I'm process and approach and controlling what I can control oriented when I crush a line drive and it goes right to the shortstop or right to the center fielder, and I'm like, I did a great job. Great at bat. Most people are results oriented. And results oriented means no matter how well you strike the ball or how good of a pitch you make, if the hitter finds a way to just kind of finds a way to put the barrel on the ball and gets a hit off you, you're going to think, well, gosh, that was a bad pitch. No, it was a great pitch. You just, like, the hitter did a good job. And same thing is true on the offensive side. Sometimes as a hitter, you do everything right, but you just hit it right at a guy. Kyle didn't really fail freshman year, so surprisingly good advice from him. Well, I failed my sophomore year, Dan, so that was, I learned it. I learned sophomore year for sure. Steve Moser, Super Chat, $10. Great show tonight. It's always a good day to make fun of Missouri. Rock chalk. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it, man. We are 11 now. We're 9 away, guys, from the regional stream. All right, let me catch up with chat now. I'm sure you saw, but Georgia Tech looked absolutely pissed on selection show, Smitty. Yes, they did. They did, 100%. And they should have. Louisville lost series to unranked Georgia Tech and fell 1 spot in the rankings. Yeah, basically meaning like they're on par with Louisville. Like that means Georgia Tech, roughly speaking, should have been ranked like 19 or 21 or something, or even higher, right? Like 18 or 17. Simultaneously didn't reward Georgia Tech for the win and didn't punish Louisville for a loss. It's even more sinister, Kyle. These guys are paid by the SEC, and all of their money comes from the SEC, not the ACC. It's all money, plain and simple, and they are bought and paid for. Canes, you have you got the facts on that, or is that your insinuation? I really hope Georgia Tech can win this regional. I'm pulling for y'all. I hate what they did to Georgia Tech. Yeah, same. Canes is single-handedly draining the swamp. Smitty, heck yeah. Battlefront Steve. Heck yeah, Steve. Smitty, where are you heading to play? You guys keep giving them the benefit of the doubt when they continue to show their hand and true self to you every week. Canes, just like every politician. Canes woke me up to D1 baseball bias. Daniel Polka, hit the super chat. We got to get that 12-hour stream. Oh, NGIT? Nice, Smitty. Nice. We'll never give them a penny. NGIT was in the tournament, a year or two ago? But that's going to be great, man. Make sure you stay in shape. And, honestly, your freshman fall, that's where most guys mess up because they don't come into their freshman fall ready to go. And that's where you make your impression. And that's where jobs are won, is that freshman fall. That's when they're making the decisions. Obviously, a little bit in that early spring, but you set yourself up for getting a lot of innings or a lot of at-bats that freshman fall by kind of just showing up and doing the work and being ready to go. Wiley Ballard, super chat, $100 US. Another fake news from Wiley Ballard. I heard Canes will be sending dispatches back to Kremlin from Hattiesburg. Man, I even forgot what we were talking about. Oh, okay. We were talking about the SEC and everything, and I think we covered that enough. Oregon State's probably one that we need to. 954 with a $20. So that counts as 2. 7 more. 7 more to go. Woke me up to D1 baseball. Now I can't. I got to figure this out. NGIT, that's a good school. That's right. They play Miami all the time. Yep. Smitty must be taking lessons from Nick Dean or Zach Granite with that Jersey Connect. That's right. That's right. Is it Deanie, Dan? I can't forget how his name was pronounced. All right, so let's look at the regional. Obviously, Eugene Regional, Oregon, Arizona, Cal Poly, Utah Valley. I do think this is probably Oregon's regional to win. Although Arizona, again, it's funny with a lot of the West Coast schools. Arizona and Arizona State have been very similar in that they've kind of been up and down. And they kind of just been, Kyle, we'll come on the stream and report from Southern Miss. All right. We'll talk about it. And Miami people keep donating and showing love. Hey, welcome to Miami. Someone play the Will Smith song. What's it called again? If I wish I could play songs on here. Super chat. Is North Carolina still your prediction to win it all? Yes, John. Thank you, John, for the $10. John in the house. That's right, John. John is in the chat. And now we got 6 left. We're 6 away. And now I'm starting to think I should have made the number higher. But a deal is a deal. A deal is a deal. Let's do the stream Friday. Let me look at my calendar. There would be only one reason if I look at my calendar. There would be only one reason that I can't do Friday, but I should be able to. I should be able to. Kyle, that Miami money is not clean. You are a vessel for laundering. Do not accept it. 6 more. Wake up, sheep. Arizona State and Miami are in the dance, baby. That's right. Hey, everyone in the chat here is in the dance for the most part. Actually, Coog's not in the dance, unfortunately. Do the stream Saturday as those are better games. Well, I kind of got to make sure my wife's okay with it, right? Because we got to make sure we don't have actually. Yeah, I got to think about which one we do. Tech plays Friday 3 p.m. I think. Not me, Coog. That's right. Okay, let's see here. Can we get a full Ren fam stream 12 hours? I don't know. Probably not. Arizona State. We were in your spot last year. All right, so LSU. Yeah, I haven't even got to the Georgia Tech Regional yet. All right, LSU gets Dallas Baptist, Rhode Island, Little Rock. Again, it's going to be LSU or Dallas Baptist. Kind of a simple one. Clemson gets West Virginia, Kentucky, USC Upstate. That may be the most difficult regional in the tournament is Clemson. So that's going to be a tough one to predict. Like and even like don't sleep on USC Upstate. Like they really hit. They hit for power. But four good teams in that regional. Georgia gets Duke, Oklahoma State, and Binghamton. The question for me is, does Georgia have enough answers for all the left-handed bats of Georgia or of Duke? Oklahoma State has kind of been, I was actually really surprised that Oklahoma State got in. Kentucky is fraudulent. We covered this already. Yes. But what you can say about Kentucky is that they did not play Missouri. So at least that 13-17 is legit, right? If they had played Missouri and they got in at 13-17, it would be like riot worthy. Jordan Kolb's can't work 12 hours straight like Kyle. Are you kidding me, WB? That's true. Tech looked pissed on selection show. They 100% were. And by Monday, all of us can be in. And by Monday, all of us can be in your spot. I can't believe Clemson got USC upseed, damn it. I have Kentucky's my only 3 seed coming out of the regionals. Buck, that is crazy. That is bad news for us, Zach. Polka, it's the postseason, all hands on deck, rowing the same direction. It takes what it takes. So in Kentucky's case, as long as you play in the SEC and have a good RPI, you will get in. Doesn't matter what your conference record is. Yes. Well, I mean, that was set by Florida and LSU last year because they were both 13-17 when they got in. I want the stream to happen so I can bring my fam. All right, so now, why did no Big 12 host? I think there's a lot of kind of answers to that, but it just seems like the Big 10 had better overall performers in conference, meaning like Oregon went 22-8, UCLA went 22-8. That was really like the big difference maker as far as from a hosting perspective. Obviously, their RPIs were like TCU was at 18, UCLA and Oregon were both at 15 and 16. So it's they just kind of went by the RPI there. Again, like TCU went 19 and 11 in conference. Kansas went 20 and 10, but UCLA and Oregon both went 22 and 8. So in the Big 12, like Arizona went 18 and 12. West Virginia went 19 and 9. So like UCLA, like the Big 10 just had multiple teams have just really dominant in-conference record. And it seemed like, and obviously played like some good enough competition to have a little bit higher RPI. But the Big 12 is a higher RPI conference than the Big 10. So I get why people think like this doesn't make sense. And again, just another example of why RPI like should not be the be-all end-all metric that it kind of is scapegoated as and used as. To Kyle's house while I sit on stream with. Polka fam stream, let it rip. Daniel, you're not going to Oxford? For my tournament analysis, I see the Big 12 as a strong conference. 3 teams deserved hosting but were snubbed due to funding of which I have found. All right, thanks, Will. TCU should have been a host over Southern Miss. Yeah, I think it's definitely an argument that can be made. I think the real snub, and again, Ole Miss played well in the SEC tournament, but again, it's like, are we rewarding it's like we're heavily weighing the last couple of games the team plays versus what their resume is on the books before the tournament. And Ole Miss, 3-year wins in conference are against Missouri. So it's like, that's the one where I just don't get. All right, but anyway, Ole Miss gets Georgia Tech, Western Kentucky, Murray State. This is kind of a difficult regional. Western Kentucky, very good. 42nd in RPI, 46 and 12 overall. Strength of schedule was 185, but had a really good year. And I do think this is going to be an Ole Miss versus Georgia Tech regional. I don't think there's going to be any upsets besides that. I do think that, and we're going to pull this up. Just look at Ole Miss right now. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm pulling up the season stats right now. All right, so Ole Miss hits 282 as a team. They've scored 443 runs in 59 games. So they're basically scoring, call it 7.5 runs a game, which is okay. On base percentage is 402, which is not good, especially in this era. They do slug. They slug about almost right at 500. They have a bunch of guys with double-digit home runs. They can really hit the ball at the ballpark. They have 95 doubles, 105 home runs. Like they're going to bang. The weakness of this team is really the bullpen. They do have a few pretty good arms. Their starting pitchers are not that great. Hunter Elliott is definitely their best starter. He's got a 3.09 ERA, but doesn't walk guys, strikes out a lot of guys. Riley Maddox has not been great. And their number 3 starter performance-wise, Mason Nichols, has a 5.51. And again, just has not been great. So their starting pitching is pretty weak after their ace. The question is, does Ole Miss throw their ace against Murray State? That's something to watch. All right, let me go through these chats again. All right, man, I can't even read something without you guys going crazy. All right, TCU should have been host over Southern Miss. Nope, Zach, be happy that Southern Miss is a host. Southern Miss being the 16 is gross, too. Just confirming everyone's belief that they only got in because of committee membership. Definitely possible. Arkansas, LSU, North Carolina, Oregon seem like the safest bets to move on. Yes, I think you're correct. Trust me, I am, but just stating the facts. TCU had better RPI, strength schedule, and played in better conference. True. Nancy, I can't make it. I'm in 3 summer classes. Missing 3 days would be like missing 6 class sessions. I have the slightest chance to go Saturday, Sunday, but it seems like a long shot. Will Tate McKee throw first game of regionals? That's a good question. You're playing Western Kentucky, so Georgia. Again, this is not like you're facing another Power 4 team. So that is a decision that's going to have to be made by Georgia Tech. I think Western Kentucky has some good bats. You definitely they got 46 wins this year. You cannot underestimate them. But again, are they going to have the depth of like an SEC or ACC team? No, they will not. So that's a question that is going to be interesting. We'll see how the Georgia Tech staff decides. Here's my 8 to Omaha: Vandy, FSU, UNC, Auburn, Texas, UGA, LSU, Arkansas. Vandy and Arkansas final with Arkansas winning. SEC demonstrating its dominance again, so this stream can keep whining about it. Thank you, Buck. Wow, unbelievable. That's almost a bannable comment right there. So does Tech stay with current pitching rotation? Nancy, I will say this. You're definitely concerned with how Brady Jones looked in ACC tournament, and this is why I'll say this. Postseason baseball is different. And what I saw from Brady Jones and just reading body language and reading his facial expressions, it wasn't that there was fear, right? Like there was pressure that he was not used to, and it did not make him better. It made him worse. So in my mind, I would have him as your number 3 now. After that performance, Tate McKee showed more pressure. He was better. That's a good sign. Brady Jones, to me, like I could just tell he was nervous. There was a little bit of fear in there, and in that nerves. This is what people don't understand. Like pressure and nerves. Again, it's like the old adage: it either creates diamonds, or you get smashed. Like there's no in between. And I just think Brady Jones. I think we found out that like maybe he should not be the number 2 in the regional. That would be my take. That if I was in that locker room and that coaching staff room, that is what I would say. Because that is what I saw and I felt from watching him pitch. So forgot the whole regular season. Ole Miss winning 3 games in the SEC tournament is what got them a host. And also crazy, they are the 10th overall seed. Yeah, they went from not being a host to the 10th overall seed. But again, 3 of their wins in the regular season are from Missouri. Easier to go 22-8 in the Big Ten, though. Yes, Steve, 100%. 100%. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's why they got in, because they went 22-8 in the Big Ten. Their RPI was higher. Again, RPI, you can't really, with some of these teams, you're like, why is that RPI that high? It doesn't make sense. Because the Big Ten overall is a kind of big jump from the Big 12 and far of RPI for the conference. So I don't understand how, I don't understand how that happened this year. Kyle, does Miami start Hugus or Siskar? I think you got to go Hugus. I mean, he's a veteran. I don't think you're going to put a freshman game 1 in the regional. I just don't think you do. I think you got to go Hugus and then know, like, Darius and Siskar are waiting in the wings, and you feel pretty good about that. WKU had CUSA Pitcher of the Year. Yep. So it just depends on who they're pitching, right, Wiley? Like if they're, which they will be throwing their number 1. So like you kind of got to go, one-on-one. Is Riley Stanford a reliable starter for Georgia Tech? No, he was not. That's why he's no longer in the starting rotation. He was a starter. He is no longer in the rotation and kind of hadn't pitched at all for the most part. Buck fed. Close. Yeah, okay, Buck. Arkansas, the team with the most recruiting advantages in college baseball and 0 rings. And it continues. Buck might be right. We'll be calling the Pigs in Omaha. See, Polka knows. About Pigs, but they will play Georgia Tech and lose to Georgia Tech. Polka also said Miami was out. True. That is true. Was nerves what happened with all the mental errors in game against Clemson? Just didn't seem to have the same fight and fire. Yeah, I mean, what I would say is I don't blame Lodi's really for the play at rounding third base. One, I mean, actually, I'll take that back. I mean, you have to have an internal clock as a player. Like, and you also can use your eyes and just see that, like, if he had just looked left as he rounded third, he would have seen, like, I'm dead to rights at home and stopped. One, I do think James Ramsey, I think he was not positioned great. Like in best case scenario, I would like to be down the line there so that you can watch the play and have a longer time to make a decision to hold him up. Because by the time he held his hands up, Lodi's was kind of going right by him and probably didn't see it. Again, I don't know, but Lodi seemed to just be kind of amped up. And again, I don't know if it's because it was a tournament game and that's his first time in that kind of an environment. Albeit there weren't that many fans there, but I like the overall pressure of the game being, if you win this game, you're a host. If not, it's a big question mark. I think that's probably what you saw. One of those reasons you saw a bunch of mistakes. Just didn't seem to have the same fight and fire. No, I just think when he got in trouble, he looked like, oh no, I'm gonna ruin this game. That's exactly what. That's what it looks like when that's a person's mindset. When they get in a tough situation or they walk a guy and they're like, oh no, am I going to lose my command here and I'm not going to throw strikes? That's what happens. One thing that I've noticed, Stadium Pulse can rock a pitcher. Pitching is like putting a golf ball. You need all the focus and no distractions to perform. Well, John, that's true for some people. And some of us, like some guys, and I would include myself in that, like I want them to be as loud as possible. Like that makes me better. It makes me focus more. So like, but it's very like it's, and Dan Palka was the same way. Like he had some big home runs big crowds for us, like walk off against Clemson. I think your freshman year, I think, Dan, or maybe sophomore year, whichever one it was. And some guys are better in that kind of situation. Now, in my mind, those are guys who are going to be successful, obviously postseason, stuff like that, because the bigger the moment, just like the more locked in they are, or they don't get worse. There's a lot of players, and actually the majority of players, kind of at each level. Like when big pressure situation comes up, they're scared to death that they're going to be in. They're going to be the one that has to like get the team to win. Like, I want to be the guy up. I want to be the hero. I want to be the guy that gets the big hit. Some guys, it's the exact opposite mentality. They think, oh no, I'm going to lose the game. Right? My mentality was always, I'm going to be the one that wins the game. And it seems like that's an easy thing. Like, oh, why don't they just think that? It's much harder than it sounds. Polka cooking yet again. Canes, I can't help that a magical $450K was donated to the NCAA committee last night, sourcing from South Beach. Is Riley Stanford a reliable? I already answered that. Who's going to Hattiesburg? Oh, you mean who is in like anyone in the stream? I don't think I will be. I can't, but I will be watching every single game. That donation was actually discovered in a bank account in Atlanta, Georgia. Oh my. Wow, Canes, I don't know what you're insinuating here, but be careful. They said it was to Drew Burress. Omaha 8, Vandy, FSU, North Carolina, Coastal, Arkansas, LSU, Georgia, Texas. Okay. I have Georgia Tech making it to supers against Georgia. Well, I mean, here's the deal, man. For Georgia Tech right now, we'd love to get to the College World Series, but like, and I think Dusty's right. Like, he's talked to you guys about this. I do think Georgia Tech is built for, their team is just built for super regional over a regional. So I think if Georgia Tech gets out of a regional, it'll be interesting to see. And honestly, you've lost 3 games to the SEC all year. Georgia Tech's due for a couple wins against the SEC. So we'll see how they do in the regional, and then again the supers after that. I have Georgia Tech. I already said that. We're all going to Hattiesburg Blue. Everybody. Okay. Oh, you're talking about the Miami. Yeah, the Miami guys. I don't know. I was including myself in that. Send super chats. 954 says, if we can trace that $450K donation, we could get the whole committee sent to federal prison on RICO charges as they deserve. Oh my gosh, that's pretty funny. Wiley Bowdenjoy will be driving the wreck to Hattiesburg on Saturday to pick up the equipment. Hey, watch out! Watch how you talk about my quantitative analyst, Buck. All right. I just nailed the microphone. I keep nailing it too. Buck gonna catch these hands. Yeah, I mean, I'd watch out, Buck. I mean, Buck's an actor though, so be careful. He's probably fragile. And that's the thing that's weird. And no, actually, we have 2 more regionals to cover, but they're the worst. They're just the dumbest regionals. Let's go to the regionals here. 1 second, guys. All right. Man, you guys are chatting so fast. Oops, Oxford, I mean. Yeah, I was about to say, Buck. Sounds like a job for James O'Keefe. Bucky Smollett. Will Drew Burress transfer to SEC? No, not as long as, from what I've heard, he will not leave James Ramsey. That's what I've heard. So it depends on where James Ramsey's at. Possibly in a couple weeks, in a week, like depending on what happens. So from what I've heard, like he's going to either stay at Georgia Tech with James Ramsey as the head coach, or if James Ramsey leaves, he's going to go where James Ramsey goes. I can't tell you that for sure, but Kane said he's transferring to Miami. Definitely not happening. Ban Smitty? No way. I'm not banning Smitty. Drew Burress, number 2 hitter behind Curiel at LSU next year. I don't think so. It's a possibility, I guess. If you can roll out a dump truck of money, What's the toughest regional and what's the softest regional? We'll get in that in a second. I need to go over the last 2. But keep that question in mind, Zach. If I forget, comment again. That's the info from the local hobo on the corner. Is Jason Torres going to get a heater to his back on Friday? I doubt it. I mean, I don't think so. Arkansas, LSU, North Carolina, Clemson, Arizona State, Tennessee, Vandy. Okay. Jason Torres is going to continue his 45% strikeout rate. Okay. So last 2 regionals, Oregon State, TCU. Again, Oregon State got a national seed. I mean, it's just like, it's unbelievable. Oregon beat Oregon State 4 straight games in the regular season. And Oregon State is seated ahead of Oregon. Oregon State is seated ahead of Oregon. They get TCU, Southern Cal, and St. Mary's. I'm honestly thinking this is probably the most upsettable regional doesn't mean it's the easiest regional. It means it's the most upsettable regional. Meaning I think Oregon State of all the hosts is the most likely to get upset. And that's because they have not played just a difficult schedule at all. We've talked about it. Kyle, how's their RPI so high? That doesn't make any sense. The RPI is a great stat. No, they've just played a lot of games on the road against not great competition. And the road, winning games on the road is a way bigger boost for your RPI. Buck is a fan of Notre Dame, Wiley. John says Northeastern. The music's about to make you fall asleep. Let's see if we can change it. To be honest, I'm just going to cut the music because the music's not great. And in a few minutes, I'm going to sleep too, so it doesn't matter. But I think that's the most upsettable regional. Florida State gets Northeastern, Mississippi State, Bethune-Cookman. It's kind of a difficult regional, and this is the reason. And I brought this up on the prediction stream last night. Northeastern, people look at Northeastern and they think this. They think they don't really know the name very well. It doesn't have a big name brand. And they think, oh my gosh, Florida State got the easiest 2 seed in the country. No. I think Northeastern is quite possibly like the 2nd or 3rd or 4th hardest 2 seed in the tournament. Northeastern is on like a 20-something game win streak. Mike Glavin's the coach, Tom Glavin's brother. If that name sounds familiar. They can pitch with the best of them. And again, they're on a complete and utter roll right now. Northeastern is very dangerous. I do think Florida State is going to be very tough to beat with their arms. Their bullpen is not that great. Florida State's bullpen is their weakness. Their offense is good. Their starting pitching is elite for the most part. Their bullpen is not great. So it's all about, to beat Florida State, you got to get the starting pitchers out. That's it. And I don't think Mississippi State's going to match up great against Florida State, but we'll see. I do think Florida State gets out of that regional. Bro, put on some Euro. All right, we'll see. Let me see what this says. Let's see what this one sounds like, Dan. Are the Miami guys obsessed with blowing Jason Torres back out? Can we not comment things like that and then have me read it out loud? Jeez. That question on ESPN today to a committee member was hilarious. Oregon beat OSU 4 times. Why is OSU a higher seed? And the guy had no idea what to say to make sense of it. Yeah, he was like, well, sometimes when you're looking at the seeds and the hosts, I mean, it's not about team A versus team B. It's about, team B versus team C and versus team D and team E. And, it's just like stuff like that. And I think even the host was like, it was like that scene in, what's the movie with Will Ferrell when he goes back to college? And he's like sitting there. He's like, that is one of the dumbest comments I've ever. We are all now dumber for what you have said. Like, that was my reaction. I was like, what is he even saying? Bro put on some already. Okay. WB, it just means more. Oregon State was a case study on how you can manipulate your RPI for a whole season. 100%. They just gamed RPI. They gamed it. They just played a bunch of games on the road against like not great teams. And it was like, wow, their number, like, just look at the RPI numbers, guys. It's not that hard to get. Like, Oregon State is surrounded by ACC and SEC teams. And then Coastal Carolina, who dominated the Sun Belt and played like all the Power 4 teams around them. Oregon State did not do that. LSU has a lower RPI than Oregon State. Tennessee has a lower RPI than Oregon State. Do any of you guys here think that Oregon State played a more difficult schedule than Tennessee, LSU, any of them? No. Oregon State has 41 wins. Tennessee has 43 wins. Oregon State is a national seed. Tennessee is not, and only got in because they got 2 wins in the tournament. It doesn't make any sense. Old school. Yeah, not Billy Madison. Old school. When did tickets go on sale for regionals? I think they're on sale now. You want to leave us? Now you're going to see us. Canes Cat Heats. They already are, but I bought out Hattiesburg. Oregon returns 8 out of 9 starters from last year's Super Regional, is what I heard. Yeah, I mean, like, again, I just don't understand how Oregon State got the national seed over Oregon. Kyle, don't read out loud. Okay, I will not. I will not read out loud. But Zach, back to your question. The easiest regional, I think, is... Let me just take a quick scan through here. I'm going to go with maybe LSU. LSU maybe gets the easiest regional, or it's Texas. And I say that because Texas doesn't get an ACC team. They get a 2 seed in UTSA and then a 3 seed in Kansas State, who are both like solid teams, but there's not one team in that conference that you think is going to, there's not one team in that regional that you think is going to beat Texas. There's not one. And the same is true for LSU. You get Dallas Baptist, and again, no one's sleeping on Dallas Baptist. Dallas Baptist is always really good. But you get Rhode Island as a 3 seed, and then Little Rock as a 4 seed. I think those are the 2 easiest. The most difficult regional in my mind is, I think, Clemson. I think Clemson's the hardest. West Virginia, Kentucky, USC Upstate. I mean, they probably get, I mean, honestly, if you're looking at this, Clemson gets probably the most difficult 3 seed besides like Miami or Kansas State. Yeah. Southern Miss is also a difficult one, Dan. That's also true. Like, Southern Miss is also a very difficult one. Alabama, Miami, Columbia, 100%. So I think, and also, like, don't sleep on Coastal Carolina regional as well. You got Florida as a 2 seed. Like, that automatically makes you one of the most difficult regionals when you get Florida as a 2 seed. They are minus 450 on DraftKings, and lock in them with LSU now. Arkansas is a minus 750 favorite to win the regional. Oh my goodness. Minus 750. Holy cow. Yeah, you're doing a little arbitrage there, John. A little arbitrage. Easiest LSU, toughest Clemson. Yeah, I agree. I think that's you can definitely, like, those are probably the 2 correct ones. You can make arguments for a few others on each of those categories, but I do think LSU has the easiest. Just because, again, Dallas Baptist, you don't get any ACC schools. You get no Power 4 schools at all in your regional. Like, but Dallas Baptist is kind of like a Power 4 caliber school in baseball. But still, like you get Rhode Island as a 3 seed. You're going to have one of the easiest ones. Southern Miss is minus 105, favorite to win the regional. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty difficult. No, I mean, there's definitely like 3 in my mind. It's Southern Miss. I mean, it's definitely Southern Miss and Clemson. And I think you could go like the Tennessee with Wake Forest, Cincinnati, Miami of Ohio. I think that's another difficult one. And then the Coastal Carolina. But after that, I mean, all the rest of them kind of seem... And again, like you may say, well, UCLA looks like they have a tough one, but it's just, again, it's like they don't have an ACC team. They don't have an SEC team. Like that's kind of the benchmark for if your regional's tough, because those are the 2 best conferences in college baseball. So if you don't have a team from either of the top 2 conferences, you have an easy regional. Kyle, do you think our players want to stick it to JT this weekend? I don't know. Maybe. You'll find out. And the question is, would you want to? No, I would not. I'll let one of your Miami players do that. Going to be interesting to see which 1 seeds throw their ace on Friday. Yes, definitely. When you're looking at the 4 seed, that's like why the 4 seed so important. Is Southern Miss going to throw Middleton against Columbia? I would bet they don't. When he was interviewed on ESPN today, Danny Hall had a chance to anoint Ramsey, but he didn't. Sus. I do kind of get what you're saying, Buck, because when he started talking about, I want to make sure I leave the program in the right spot for like moving forward, and he kind of started talking like, I wanted to give the next guy like a really good team to like keep this program going in the right direction. And I kind of was like, oh my gosh, I honestly thought the same thing. I was like, is he about to say like James Ramsey's the next head coach? But he didn't. So I don't know if it's sus. I think maybe me and you are just kind of reading into it and we know what's going on. And we were like, oh, he's about to say it. Or it could just be, and again, knowing DH, like he probably didn't even know, like he kind of came off like he was going to say something like that. But I got that feeling as well, Buck, that he was going to say it and he didn't. Kyle, I can't ignore this. Canes will not stop talking about sticking it. Yeah. By stick it to him, we're talking about, it goes on. He didn't want to go through the struggle and the grind of the rebuild. He wanted the easy way out. Now you see him in round 1. How would that make you feel? Oh, yeah. I mean, we'd be mad. Good night. See you tomorrow. See you, Zach. Yeah, I'm going to head out too, guys. Thanks for joining the stream tonight. That was fun. Great reactions. Now it's all about, like, we got regional week. Like, let's see what's going on with everybody. What news is coming out? Obviously, as we get closer to game time, we'll see if we get any interesting news coming out as far as coaching changes and stuff like that. But thanks for all the support, guys. Again, we are 6 away now from Clemson is plus 115. Holy cow. Yeah, that means they're the most difficult regional for sure. Okay. We need 6 more super chats to make it for the 12-hour regional stream. So, again,